Cryoship detected. Class, medical.
They typically have some pretty good drugs in those.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 5 video. As you would expect, there are a bunch of Easter eggs and references, but it was a pretty rough episode, like probably one of the worst episodes of the entire series, all 8 seasons so far. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything. Hopefully next week will be a return to form. The episode was titled Cryo Mort a Rickver, which is a reference to Justin Timberlake's song Cry Me a River. It's officially halfway through the season, and recently they were renewed for an additional 2 seasons, making the total run now a guaranteed 12 seasons. We will see if they ever actually get a movie made too, because supposedly Dan Harmon was talking about them actually doing a movie at some point. The actual cold open starts with a joke about true crime podcasts, the joke being the host says they're not going to cash in on the gruesome, gory details of the case that they're discussing in the episode. Rick saying that he actually wants to find a podcast that will do that, like he wants a very gratuitous podcast. That tends to be the appeal of a lot of true crime podcasts in real life, like the fact that they're so unhinged and crazy, and the episode itself sort of descends into twist upon twist upon twist, the way that a lot of these true crime podcasts in real life do. I think that's meant to be the connection with this whole true crime podcast bit at the beginning of the episode, is that the episode itself turns into one of these true crime podcasts. Also, anytime there's a podcast joke on the series, I usually think of Dan Harmon in Harmontown, just because he did that podcast for so long, but that was not an actual true crime podcast. The cryo ship that they detect, the Ark ship, looks like a parody of the Star Trek Enterprise. He references Sleeping Beauty. Morty also references that they haven't had a cryo-related adventure in a while. They've featured them many times in episodes, like the whole trope of cryo-freezing stuff. But usually anytime they reference it in episodes, it actually reminds me of the Morty's Mind Blowers episode, where one of his memories was accidentally killing a bunch of people in cryo storage that Rick was keeping when he turned off their life support without realizing it. Ark ships are sci-fi tropes that you see in many different series and movies, not just Star Trek, where a group of people or an entire civilization frees themselves and flies to a new world to colonize. Rick learns that they left their original world after they destroyed it. Part of the idea is that you find out that their civilization is generally a bunch of terrible people, I think meant to be commentary on our own real-world Earth. Like at some point we'll destroy our own world and then just fly somewhere else and be terrible on some other planet.
Looks like these guys flung themselves into space after wrecking their homeworld.
As of me posting this video, real life actually not going so great, like looks like the world might be ending in the next couple of years with the way things are going. But the episode generally starts pitting Morty against Rick in a battle of morals, which is usually the way things go down, usually they're dynamic. Morty has some line that he will not cross, and Rick fights him for it. But I do love the idea that Morty is totally fine taking candy from a baby, like that is not over his line. Hypercoal just sounds like another type of fuel that's valuable that Rick wants, but Rick's actual spaceship is powered by a battery that they featured very heavily in the early seasons by a miniature civilization, which itself also gets its own power from an even smaller civilization. So it's not like he actually needs the hypercoal to power his ship. There's a lot of logical inconsistencies throughout the episode, just in the service of having twist upon twist upon twist, but I think that's meant to feed into the whole bit of true crime podcasts being built on these types of ridiculous twists. Like you won't believe what happens next to these group of people. They run the new intro again, and we finally get our first scene from the new intro during this episode with crew member Morty attacking Rick, who pretends to be a couple's young child in an old man's body. The doctor then makes a Star Trek reference to Bones when he says, "I went to school for medicine, not manners." They call their worker class Makeys, and the upper class that Rick now belongs to, the Takeys. They all have these compliance chips in their brains. Morty winds up being named Chichako. We meet the real Jimmy in Chichako later in the episode. They set up the whole class struggle theme of the episode, with the lower working class having it super rough and the wealthy class living in the higher decks. This also feels like a reference to the Titanic movie with different classes on different decks, and that was true to real life too. Morty then tries to tell the truth and bail on the disguise, which they do not believe. Rick's fake parents reference the god of their people. They never really dig too deep into that, only the fact that there was a god that they believed in. They throw him their culture's version of a birthday, which is kind of like a manhood ceremony where he'll become officially part of their society and gain access to their vault. I was kind of expecting the actual ceremony to involve him doing something super messed up, but it did not go that way. Morty starts a larger uprising in the lower class when they spot him attacking Rick and then shows them they can live without their compliance chips. When they have the secret handshake that goes on for too long, it feels like a Troy and Abed handshake reference from Community because Dan Harmon, Community. All the Makeys start their uprising at Rick's manhood ceremony. His fake parents then open the vault, revealing that it's empty already, their entire civilization blaming them, both the Makeys and the Takeys, revealing what happened with the real Jimmy and the real Chichako.
Jimmy Jamerson is dead.
They both faked their deaths to steal the money right after their Ark ship launched and everybody went into cryo storage, revealing that Jimmy's bones actually belong to Lizzie, one of the monkeys that belongs to one of the trainers on the crew, setting up a longer bit that they pay off in the post-credit scene. R.I.P. to Lizzie. They also kind of make it seem like the real Jimmy killed her too. Like I said, the fact that there just becomes twist upon twist upon twist just feels like it feeding into the whole bit about the true crime podcast being extra grisly, extra gory at the beginning of the episode. This older, guppy Chichako was the person that Morty was pretending to be, paying off the other side of the bit that Rick showed up super old, so they thought that he aged up in his cryotube, but Morty would technically be much younger, but nobody actually calls out that logic bit. Like, there are a lot of bits like this in the episode where it's just like a joke for joke's sake that doesn't make any sense. Like, wait a minute, he used to be an old man, why is he super young now? Why did nobody think about that earlier? This was not the first bit in the episode that did not make sense. Morty then discovers what happened with the real Jimmy and Chichako. They went to a planet called Blackjack 9, which is a casino planet. Feels like a Star Wars Last Jedi reference to Canto Bight. Morty then tries to give the moral message of the episode that money should not matter as they all bail and space race to steal their money back. And the whole bit with all the spaceships racing to the casino planet to get their money back feels like a Wacky Races kind of bit, or maybe a little bit of Cannonball Run too later in the episode. A lot of this episode depends on how you like those Wacky Races episodes, because that's kind of the vibe of the entire episode, like just totally over the top and ridiculous, very different for a normal Rick and Morty type of episode. Like tonally, it did not feel like a regular Rick and Morty episode. Rick's ship here looks kind of like a combination of a classic Ferrari mixed with a classic Lamborghini. We meet the slightly older Jimmy and Chichako, and they just keep going with this whole Wacky Races bit, like it basically takes up the entire rest of the episode. The monkey trainer winds up finding his new Lizzie, also setting up the post-credits scene again. One of the spaceships here looks like an old Earth boat for some reason. The casino planet as they fly away also has a bunch of symbols from Earth playing cards on it too. More inconsistencies. This feels kind of like lazy jokes. This person who drives their larger Ark ship through the city is actually the same guy who got his compliance chip adjusted earlier in the episode. The whole chicken coop in the barn in space was a bit much. This also starts to feel a little bit like a Cannonball Run kind of joke. Rick also rolls the windows to their spaceship down while they're in space, and they don't die, which is a weird bit of logic. Like I said, but they've kind of descended into that point in this episode. Like, if it wasn't ridiculous before, it's really ridiculous now. Starting to feel like the episode is bad, and they should feel bad for making it.
Why would you roll the windows down? I wanted the full experience.
We find out that Jimmy's worst fear in all this is that he's going to get caught and they'll ground him. Chichako thinks they should kill themselves. Jokes all over the map here. Morty then jettisons all the money in the hypercoal into space. Chichako wanting to reach for the money still also feels like an Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade bit. Like, just let it go, we don't need it. Then the real Jimmy reveals that he owes money to really bad people, which they never actually pay off, like he just says that and they just move on to the next part of the episode. Rick and Morty then put compliance chips in every member of their race, giving them a fresh start to their whole class dynamics. Then the parents tell Rick that he was a great son, even for the brief period that he was with them, which feels like another sly reference to Rick's bad relationship with his actual parents. They've referenced them earlier this season, making it feel like we will see more of them in future seasons at some point, like they'll start digging more into Rick's own history, his own childhood. We've gotten a couple Easter eggs to them before, but just only loose references. When Morty talks about Rick actually choosing him like you did choose me, it's a reference to Rick's original mission to hunt down Rick Prime and kill him to get revenge for killing his original wife and his original Beth. Rick's original universe is C137. After Rick Prime killed his family in that universe, he found Rick Prime's original universe and saw that he had abandoned his family in that universe. Rick Prime had abandoned his family, so Rick C137 moved in pretending to be him, waiting for Rick Prime to eventually show up and come back. but he never actually did, and that was the Cronenberg universe. So this version of Morty is from the Cronenberg universe, but then they moved to another universe, so the rest of their family is from a completely different universe from this Morty and from this C137 Rick. Then eventually they told the truth of that. Morty, the rest of the family learns the truth, and that's what his whole rant, Rick's whole rant about found family is at the end of the episode, because this version of his family and this version of Morty is literally and metaphorically a found family for him. He found them in other universes. So that's probably one of the most meaningful actual scenes, most dramatically meaningful scenes in the episode. But the actual episode where they told that backstory is a much better episode than this whole episode. Rick then detects another cryo ship, this time a medical one with amazing drugs, Morty agreeing to check it out, implying that a similar series of wacky things will just happen to them again, like it'll all just restart and happen again. Morty also, apparently, loves drugs, which I think is relatively new. Usually Rick is the one that loves doing all that stuff. There are a couple cameo scenes. Nolan North and Troy Baker also guest starred in the episode as some of the background voices and some of the supporting aliens, but they weren't like above the title card types of cameo scenes that you usually see. During the actual post-credit scene, they pay off the bit with a zoologist and his new Lizzie, who winds up being an amazing card player, winning a ton of money, implying that they go on to have their own wacky adventures, like they just continue doing this on the casino planet. That also might have been Dan Harmon just riffing on that classic Clint Eastwood movie, Every Which Way But Loose from 1978, where he plays Phil Badeau, a trucker in a bare-knuckle brawler roaming the American West in search of a lost love while accompanied by his brother manager and his pet orangutan, Clyde. That's the movie where Clint Eastwood stars with the pet orangutan. People think is a fake movie. Like if you think about it in present day, you try to pitch it to somebody, they might think that it's a fake movie and you're just trying to make up a joke. But nope, it actually happened. It's a real thing. Probably because of the Planet of the Apes movies in the 1960s and the 1970s. Like, apes were so big in general that, like, apes, monkeys, orangutans, putting them in movies made it feel like you could actually earn more money. So they probably did that movie based on the Planet of the Apes movies. Like, oh, we put an orangutan in it, it'll earn way more money.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
That was actually a commonly held belief back in the day for comic book publishing as well. Like you put an ape on the cover, people felt like you could actually sell way more copies of your comic book. Just because for a period, because of the Planet of the Apes movies, that whole genre was just really, really popular. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so if you spotted any in the episode that I didn't reference in the video, just write them below in the comments. As I said, the episode was bad, and they should feel bad for making it. Hopefully episode 6 next week will be a return to form. My episode 6 video will post after they release it. There's also going to be Marvel's new Ironheart episodes that'll start this week. I'll do a single video for like the big dump of episodes that they do, so there'll be more of like a binge drop over 2 weeks for that show. Everybody click here for all my Rick and Morty episodes, and click here to learn about Marvel's new Black Panther. Thank you so much for watching.